Naomi Ellison boarded Flight 261 with a first-class seat and a quiet agenda. What followed wasn't just another case of discrimination, it was a masterclass in corporate accountability. When Naomi, a black CEO and equity strategist, was asked to move for a white gentleman, the airline had no idea they were about to trigger a governance clause she herself had written. In just 45 minutes, the flight crew was removed, protocols were suspended, and a full audit was launched, not through yelling, but through structure, receipts, and ownership. Before we dive in, where are you listening from today? Drop your city in the comments. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, go ahead and subscribe. Now, let me tell you about Flight 261. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your correct seat. This cabin is for business class passengers only. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, meant to slice clean through the cabin noise. Naomi Ellison didn't answer right away. She turned slightly, her right hand still resting lightly on the armrest. Her cardigan was the color of oatmeal, her purse sat neatly on her lap, and her boarding pass was still tucked between the pages of her travel journal. "I'm in my correct seat," Naomi said quietly. The flight attendant blinked. Then she smiled that customer service smile, tight and tired. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding." She gestured toward the back of the plane. "Economy boarding was through the rear jet bridge. That may be where your actual seat is." A few heads turned. The man in 3B looked up from his Kindle. A teenage girl in 2A had already started recording on her phone. Naomi sat perfectly still. "I believe you should double-check the manifest," she said, softly. "My seat is 3A business class." The flight attendant didn't move. Her name badge read Tracy Lorman. Her smile faded just enough to make room for disbelief. "I'll just recheck," Tracy said, flipping open the small tablet in her hand. Her fingers tapped rapidly. Tap, 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 then pause. Tap again. She squinted at the screen. A wrinkle formed between her eyebrows. The older white man in seat ton C leaned sideways to look. "Doesn't look like a 3A to me," he muttered. "Not dressed for it, anyway." Tracy's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Naomi shifted slightly in her seat, not defensively but with dignity, her spine straight, her chin level. She placed her journal gently on the tray table. The pages were slightly worn at the edges. Tracy lowered the tablet. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but our system shows this seat is assigned to a Mr. Delaney, first initial M." Naomi opened her journal. Tucked inside was her boarding pass. She held it out, calm and steady. Tracy took it with hesitation. Then came the pause, the kind of pause that makes a whole row go silent. The screen on the tablet didn't match the paper in her hand. "That may be an error," Tracy said carefully. "These things sometimes happen. I'll just go verify with the gate agent." She turned briskly and walked down the aisle, not meeting anyone's eyes. The man in 3B cleared his throat. "You okay, ma'am?" Naomi smiled at him. "I'm fine, thank you." Another attendant walked by and slowed near Naomi's row. She gave a small glance at the seat number, then continued walking. A non-verbal confirmation that something wasn't adding up, but no one wanted to say it out loud. The girl in 2A was still recording. "She's got the seat," she whispered into her phone. "She's got the pass, but they're acting like she snuck in here." Back near the galley, Tracy spoke low into the intercom. Naomi closed her journal and rested her hands atop it. Her wedding ring caught the light. The metal looked old, like it had survived a long story. So did the woman wearing it. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Then a man in a gray vest and headset came down the aisle, carrying a tablet of his own. He stopped beside Naomi. "Ma'am, I'm Wesley Grant, ground supervisor. May I see your ID?" Naomi reached into her purse, no fumbling. She handed over her driver's license and the boarding pass together. Wesley took them wordlessly. Behind him, Tracy watched, arms crossed lightly. "Thank you," he said, stepping back to his tablet. His eyes flicked between screen and ID. 3 seconds. Then he glanced again. The screen didn't match the paper or the face. He tapped the tablet harder, as if pressing harder might change what it said. Finally, he looked up. "Ma'am, our system has your name listed for economy seat 17D. "That's incorrect," Naomi said evenly. "I purchased a business class ticket 6 weeks ago, confirmed again at check-in." Tracy leaned in. "Sometimes passengers get confused when they use miles instead of booking directly, especially on partner airlines." The words were coated in sugar, but they cut all the same. Naomi looked at Wesley. "I'd like to speak to someone from ticketing," she said. Wesley hesitated. "That won't be necessary just yet. Let me try something first." Behind them, someone muttered, "Just let her sit down." Another voice replied, "They're just doing their job." The girl in 2A tilted her phone up slightly. "She's not even raising her voice," she whispered. "She's just calm, like she's used to this." Wesley's radio crackled. "Grant!" Confirmation mismatch on Flight 261 manifest. One unregistered business seat assigned to Ellison. Manual override failed. Tracy's voice was sharp now. "So she wasn't supposed to be here." Naomi turned to look directly at her. "I've spent more nights in airports than you've worked flights," she said, quiet but clear. "Let's not pretend this is about procedure." Tracy blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you looked at me, not the boarding pass, and decided who I must be." Wesley raised his hands. "Okay, everyone, let's keep it professional." He turned back to Naomi. "Ma'am, I believe the fastest way to resolve this is to step off the aircraft and verify with the desk." Naomi didn't move. "You're asking me to disembark to prove I belong in the seat I paid for?" Wesley hesitated. "I'm asking for your cooperation." "Of course you are," she said. She stood slowly, gracefully, journal in one hand, purse in the other. As she stepped into the aisle, a quiet voice called from the back. "Don't do it, ma'am." "You didn't do anything wrong." Heads turned. Naomi didn't look back. She paused at the cabin door, looked out toward the gate. Then she took out her phone. She dialed. The call connected instantly. Her voice was quiet. "This is Ellison. Put me through." A pause. "Yes, I'll hold." A long silence. Then, just 3 words. "Activate Clause 13." She ended the call, turned, and smiled at Wesley. "I believe you'll be receiving a call in the next few minutes," she said softly. Then she stepped off the plane, and the cabin didn't breathe, not for a long time. 814B was quieter than usual, not silent, but subdued, like the space was holding its breath. Naomi sat on a cushioned bench near the charging station. Her legs were crossed at the ankle. Her cardigan sleeves were rolled back just enough to reveal a thin silver bracelet, inscribed with 3 initials, R-E-L. She wasn't scrolling her phone, wasn't texting. She was waiting. The gate agent, a younger woman with a bright scarf and wide eyes, kept glancing in her direction, not because of recognition, just unease. Naomi wasn't angry, wasn't fussing. That made it worse. Passengers nearby whispered. Did they really kick her off the flight? Yeah, something about a seating error, but she looked legit. That's business class for you. Naomi checked her watch, then made the second call. This one rang once, then connected. Yes, it's Ellison again. Tell Milton I don't want reassurances, I want clarity. Pause. No, not in the office. Tell him I'm in Terminal D, Gate 14B, and I want verification, full manifest access, and system override authorization. A beat, then, yes. I'll hold. She closed her eyes as the jazz music played through her earpiece. It was the waiting music used by only a few private lines, the kind reserved for upper-tier equity circles. 2 minutes passed. Then a new voice cut in, male, calm, British accented. Ms. Ellison, Milton speaking. We weren't expecting movement this soon. You should have, she said. You knew the vote passed last quarter? I assumed you'd wait until the earnings report. That was before I was asked to prove I belonged in a seat I purchased. Understood. She opened her eyes slowly. Activate Clause 13C. Effective immediately. Are you sure? Very. Milton cleared his throat. Then we'll proceed. But that will trigger a visibility alert on all levels. I'm counting on it. I'll notify the board. And alert the governance office. Tell them I'm observing live conditions. Yes, ma'am. She ended the call. Not slammed, not dramatic, just final. Across the terminal, a gate manager's tablet lit up with a red error code. Boarding overwrite. Authority override request. The woman holding it stared. She'd never seen that protocol before. Back on the plane, Tracy's radio buzzed. Ma'am, we're receiving a conflict notice from upstairs. Something about an asset tag mismatch on seat 3A. Asset tag? That's a hardware issue. No, ma'am, this is from the investment side, Tracy frowned. The what? I think someone high up just flagged this flight for review. She looked around. A quiet panic began to settle in her gut. Meanwhile, Amari Freeman sat upright in 2B. His phone buzzed. Naomi Ellison searched updated. He opened the alert and saw it. Buried deep in a shareholder summary from last quarter, Naomi Ellison, Strategic Director, Gibraltar Capital. Recent acquisition, 14.7% ownership stake in Aero West Airlines. He stared at the words, then looked up toward the front of the plane. Tracy was now on her phone, her face drained of color. Passengers around her sensed something had shifted. A woman in 4A whispered, "Is she in trouble?" No one answered, because just then the cabin intercom beeped. It wasn't the captain, it was the gate. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We are temporarily pausing boarding on Flight 261 while we address a system-level update. Please remain seated and stay near the gate area. That's when Jade Chen stood up again. She looked at Amory. You found something, didn't you? He nodded, very slowly. She's not just a passenger. Then who is she? Amory didn't smile, didn't blink. She's the woman they'll be apologizing to on national television in 72 hours. The supervisor arrived fast, but not fast enough to hide the tension in her stride. Her name badge read Lenora Beckett, sharp suit, Bluetooth headset, the kind of woman who knew exactly how many steps from gate to cabin and how many seconds she had before something became an incident. Where's the passenger in question? Lenora asked. Wesley pointed toward the terminal benches. Naomi sat alone. She hadn't moved. She was removed due to a seating conflict, Wesley said. We're verifying now. She's been removed? Lenora repeated, eyes narrowing. Yes. But before he could finish, Lenora's tablet buzzed. It wasn't an alert, it was a priority escalation ping, the kind that bypassed all filters. Passenger ID conflict flagged by internal governance. Escalation level red. Verification source Gibraltar Holdings. Subject Naomi Ellison. Lenora stared at the screen. Gibraltar Holdings? That wasn't just corporate, that was board-level finance. She looked toward Naomi and suddenly saw everything differently. The cardigan. The calmness. The fact that she hadn't asked for compensation. Hadn't demanded a manager. No, Naomi was doing something else. She was watching. Wesley, Lenora said slowly, you need to step away. What? Now! Wesley hesitated, but the tone in her voice wasn't optional. He backed off. Lenora walked toward Naomi, each step calculated. Ms. Ellison, she said gently, my name is Lenora. I'm the on-site supervisor. May I sit? Naomi looked up. You may, she said. Lenora sat beside her. Not too close. I've just received a priority alert connected to your profile. It includes directives from the governance unit and certain stakeholders. Naomi said nothing. Lenora continued, choosing her words like diffusing a bomb. There may have been a procedural error in how your ticket was handled. I want to personally apologize for any... Naomi raised a hand slightly. No apologies yet, not until you understand what you're apologizing for. Lenora blinked. Naomi opened her purse, pulled out a folder, set it gently on the bench between them. Inside was a single printed email. Lenora read it silently. Gibraltar Capital confirms acquisition of 14.7% ownership stake in AeroWest Airlines. Effective date May 14, 2025. Strategic oversight to be delegated to senior operating partners. Regional governance to report to Naomi Ellison. Lenora's throat went dry. You're... Naomi turned her head, expression unreadable. I'm not here for an upgrade. I'm not here for attention. I was traveling under profile B level, quietly. As always. She tapped the paper. This flight, this interaction, activated Clause 13C. Lenora nodded slowly. She'd heard of Clause 13C only once, in a quarterly briefing. It was a governance-limited clause meant for system audits in live conditions, and this woman had just pulled it, which meant every department head was now being monitored in real time. Ms. Ellison, if I may ask, is this going to escalate? Naomi finally smiled. Not cruel, not vengeful, just inevitable. That depends entirely, she said, on whether your system is prepared to correct itself or whether it requires guidance. Lenora stood. I'll inform operations. No, Naomi replied, standing with her. You'll observe operations. That's what today is for. The woman didn't blink, just gathered her things, checked her watch, and walked calmly toward the service door. At that same moment, back on the plane, Tracy's handheld lit up again. A message in bold read, Seat 3A, Mine DH, do not reassign. Hold for oversight review. Passenger Ellison private. Private internal watch. She frowned, then turned, only to find Amari Freeman standing in the aisle. You need to sit down, sir. Amari didn't budge. I think you need to stop digging. She narrowed her eyes. Excuse me? Because whoever you just kicked off this flight, Amari said, voice low, isn't just connected. She's part of the machine, and right now she's testing whether your crew can be trusted. Tracy scoffed, but her fingers trembled as she reached for the cabin phone. Naomi walked calmly toward the gate. The status board flickered. Flight 261 delayed. System audit in progress. She didn't break stride. Behind her, Lenora followed silently, typing a new status alert. Across terminals, staff tablets began to ping one by one. Live audit underway, triggered by governance clause. All crew behavior under observation. This is not a drill. The first person to truly panic wasn't Tracy. It was Marcus Willoughby, the check-in agent. His terminal screen flashed an access code he'd never seen. Ellison audit level 4 engagement red line triggered. He leaned back in his chair. What the hell is a red line? His supervisor passed behind him, noticed the color on his screen. Where did you get that access code? I didn't, Marcus said. It showed up. His supervisor leaned in. Wait, is that? Oh, God. They stared at the name. Naomi R.E. Ellison. Then at the route log. Boarded at gate 14B, flight 261, seat 3A. Removed for verification, flagged for escalation, now under review. Internal audit timer, active. On board, Tracy's fingers hovered over the call button. The words from Amari replayed in her mind. She's part of the machine. She didn't know what that meant, but it was beginning to feel real, too real. She stepped into the galley and whispered into the cabin phone. Dispatch, I need clarification on seat 3A, immediate. There was a long pause. Then a voice she didn't recognize answered. Who is this? Tracy Lorman, Flight 261. I'm the crew lead. Another pause, then typing. We advise no further communication with or about passenger Ellison. All actions regarding that passenger are now subject to oversight review. You are being monitored. What? What does that mean? But the line clicked. Gone. Down at the gate, Jade Chen refreshed her TikTok app. Her notifications were climbing fast. Who is she? Clause 13 is a real thing? I Googled Naomi Ellison. Yaw. This woman owns part of the airline. Jade blinked. Wait. What? She clicked the comment. It linked to an obscure investment document. Jade read the first line, then sat up straighter, then stood, then turned to Amari. You were right. I know. She's on the board. Amari didn't respond. He was already writing a tweet. Passenger Naomi Ellison removed from business class. Governance audit now active. The seat wasn't in question. The system is. Inside the operations center, 3 directors were on a Zoom call. Charts, red alert, audit flags. One executive turned to the screen. Who triggered clause 13? Another answered, voice tight. Ellison. The first man leaned forward. Ellison? You're telling me the Naomi Ellison got removed from a seat she owns? Not owns, overseas. Jesus. Yeah, and she didn't call legal. She didn't call PR. She called governance. Everyone went quiet, the kind of quiet that meant someone's getting fired. At gate 14B, Lenore's phone buzzed. New message. Ellison flagged for direct observation by board governance. Priority update. Any obstruction of her movement will result in disciplinary review. She exhaled sharply, then turned to Naomi. Ellison, may I offer you the executive lounge while we re-establish your seat? Naomi raised an eyebrow. You mean the seat I already had, the one your staff removed me from? Lenora swallowed. Yes. Naomi looked at the board. Flight 261 was still delayed. Passengers were restless, phones were filming. Naomi turned slightly. I'll wait here. She returned to the bench, sat, calm. In the cockpit, the captain received a ping on his console. Governance, hold, Flight 261, do not depart, do not reassign, do not override. He looked at the first officer. Who's Ellison? No idea. The captain stood. I'm going to find out. Jade's TikTok went live again, her voice a mix of awe and adrenaline. They kicked her off the flight for not looking like she belonged in business class. But guess what? She runs part of the company. Viewers poured in, so did shares. And questions. How did no one recognize her? Is this real time? Tell her to speak out. This is the wildest quiet revenge arc ever. And inside Naomi's purse, her phone buzzed once. A message, just 4 words. Ready for phase 2. She didn't reply. Just turned her head slightly, toward the gate doors, toward the plane still waiting, toward the people now realizing. This wasn't about a seat anymore. This was about control. Flight 261 hadn't moved in 47 minutes. The gate door remained sealed, the jet bridge locked in place. Passengers sat stiff in their seats or paced the carpet with half-finished coffee cups. Inside the aircraft, tension dripped like a slow leak. The man in 4D removed his earbuds. Are we still grounded because of one woman? No one answered him, because by now everyone knew. It wasn't just one woman, it was Naomi Ellison. Up front, Tracy Lorman sat alone in the galley. She had stopped pretending. The overhead screen still blinked. Cabin lock, hold mass pending governance clearance. Seat 3A, do not alter. She read it again, as if it might change on the 3rd pass, but it didn't. Her phone buzzed, not a personal message. An internal memo. Subject, live audit activated. Crew conduct under review. She stared at the sender. Governance office, oversight division. Then read the line again. And again. Her fingers began to shake. At gate 14B, Amari stood leaning against a pillar. He watched Naomi from a distance. She hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Didn't fidget, didn't glare, didn't scroll, just waited, like the room would come to her. And it had. Jade appeared beside Amari, phone in hand. "She's not just powerful," Jade whispered. "She's surgical." Amari nodded, then murmured, "Something's coming." Jade tilted her camera down, now filming Naomi from a respectful distance. "She's about to speak," she whispered. "I can feel it." Naomi blinked slowly as a second supervisor approached. This one older, darker-skinned, with a name tag that read K. Langston, Director, Terminal Ops. He didn't come with apologies. He came with a printed folder in hand. "Ms. Ellison," he said carefully, "I'm here to facilitate next steps per board directive." Naomi looked up. "Which board?" He hesitated. "Yours." That earned the faintest twitch of a smile. "Then you know I'd prefer transparency." "Yes, ma'am." He held out the folder. Inside, a printed seating manifest with corrections, a formal written apology, and a waiver of liability. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "I didn't ask for immunity." "No, ma'am. But legal recommended it, just in case." She closed the folder without reading it, then looked at the cluster of passengers now gathered near the windows. Phones up, whispering, watching. And she stood. That single movement shifted everything, like gravity realigning. Lenora, still standing nearby, adjusted her blazer. "Ms. Ellison, we can escort you back on board now." Naomi nodded, then stepped forward. But instead of heading for the door, she turned to face the waiting crowd. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I want to thank you all for your patience today," she said clearly. "I know your time is valuable. So is your dignity." Every eye locked on her. Inside the aircraft, Tracy peeked out and froze. She could hear Naomi's voice through the glass. But it wasn't anger. It was command. This delay wasn't caused by weather or mechanics or scheduling. It was caused by a moment of assumption. Naomi scanned the faces in the crowd, some curious, some ashamed, some wide-eyed. And in that moment, the system responded exactly as it was designed to. She took a breath. And that's why the system now has to answer for it. Phones were filming, stream counts climbing. A young man near the vending machines whispered, "She's flipping the table." Naomi looked toward the jet bridge. "Let's go." As she walked through the gate, her phone buzzed. A message from governance. "Boardroom online. Feed active. Standing by for your statement." Naomi didn't answer yet. She walked the full length of the jet bridge, each step measured. At the cabin door, the captain himself stood waiting. He looked pale. I didn't know who you were," he said. Naomi looked him in the eye. "That's the problem," she replied, and stepped into the aircraft. Every passenger turned. Silence. Then a flurry of small movements. Seat backs straightened, screens dimmed, hands moved off armrests. Naomi returned to seat 3A. She placed her journal down, sat with grace. Buckle clicked, back straight. Then she opened her phone, opened the boardroom call, raised the camera, and said one sentence that would ripple through the company forever. "Let's begin." The boardroom call connected with a single tone. 12 squares lit up across Naomi's phone screen. Legal counsel, governance officers, investor relations, and at the center, Geraldine Rush, chairwoman of the Aero West Holdings Board. Naomi sat, camera propped, shoulders square, in seat 3A, now silent but no longer isolated. The cabin wasn't a cabin anymore, it was a courtroom. Naomi Geraldine said first, "We received clause activation confirmation. Are you proceeding formally?" Naomi nodded. "Yes. This is a formal governance declaration under Ownership Clause 7B, per Article 4 of the Investment Charter." "Understood," Geraldine replied. "The incident has been logged. System audit has been initiated. You have full board attention." Passengers within earshot leaned in, phones tilted. A teenage boy 3 rows back whispered, "Is this a hearing?" Naomi reached into her tote, unclipped a leather folio, pulled out 3 documents, laid them gently on the tray table, then addressed the camera. "For the record, my name is Naomi Ellison, strategic partner at Gibraltar Capital. On May 14, 2025, Gibraltar finalized acquisition of a 14.7% stake in Airlines, effective immediately." Amari let out a low whistle. She gasped, hand over her mouth. Naomi continued, "Under Section 13C, I was authorized to conduct spot reviews of customer-facing protocol and systemic behavior across live operational environments. Today's incident," she said, eyes not leaving the screen, "meets and exceeds the threshold for material governance breach." A long pause followed. No one from the board interrupted. No one dared. Captain Myers stood frozen at the front of the cabin. He wasn't sure if he should remain in command or leave the aircraft. Tracy, standing near the lavatory, pressed her lips into a line. Passengers whispered all around her. "She owns part of the airline?" "No, she audits the airline." "Is she firing someone?" Back in the terminal, Lenora Beckett read the emergency push alert. "Ownership clause formally activated. Passenger Ellison now operating under full audit authority." Her hands trembled slightly. A security guard next to her asked, "Is that legal?" Lenora didn't answer, because legal had already answered, and legal was on the call. Naomi lifted the second page in her folio. It was a printout of a policy form, circled in blue ink. She held it up. "This is AeroWest Policy 32B. It guarantees protection from discriminatory removal based on appearance, race, or assumption of class." She let the words sink. This clause was added after the 2022 class action lawsuit involving 3 black passengers removed from first class. She paused. "I funded that lawsuit." A murmur passed through the cabin. Naomi continued, "And I wrote this clause." She looked directly into the lens. Today, that policy was ignored. On screen, Geraldine's voice returned. "Naomi, would you like to proceed with disciplinary recommendation?" Naomi didn't look at her. Naomi turned to Hellerman, and both of them looked. She looked around the cabin, at Tracy, at Captain Myers, at Wesley, standing now in the galley doorway, then back to the board. "No," Naomi said, "not yet. I want every person in this room to hear the why, not just the what." She reached for the final document in her folio, a sealed envelope. She opened it slowly. Thick paper, gold seal, blue signature. She unfolded it. Read aloud. Clause 7B. In the event of material governance failure witnessed firsthand by a stakeholder, said stakeholder may, without prior notice, exercise temporary oversight of relevant operational units. In short, Naomi said, that means today, in this aircraft, under current corporate structure, I'm the one in charge. The words landed like thunder, but Naomi didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Captain Myers took a step forward. He cleared his throat. "I was not informed about any of this." Naomi tilted her head. "No, you weren't. Had I known—" "But that's exactly the problem," she interrupted gently. "Your professionalism should not depend on knowing who a passenger is." Myers fell silent. Tracy tried to speak, but the words died in her throat. Naomi reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a second ID, not her driver's license. This one bore a federal seal and the title, Senior Oversight Delegate, Equity and Governance Transport Division. The cabin audibly gasped. She let them see it, then tucked it back. From the phone, Geraldine spoke again. "Naomi, what are your immediate actions?" Naomi leaned forward. Her voice was calm, crisp. "First, I want every passenger here to understand this is not a punishment. This is a correction. Second, I will submit a formal report within 24 hours detailing protocol failures, staff conduct, and systemic gaps. And third, she said, folding her hands, I want this company to remember, power doesn't always wear a blazer. Sometimes it wears a sweater, and waits, and watches, and remembers. Then she looked straight into the camera. And when it moves with purpose. In the terminal, social media exploded. She owns the room. Naomi Ellison, remember the name. This isn't a clapback. This is a corporate realignment. Egyptian governance queen trending. Naomi ended the call, closed her folio, the tray table clicked softly, then she looked at the passengers and said one line, "Now, let's fix what broke." Naomi didn't leave her seat. She didn't have to. The entire system began rotating around her. An incoming message buzzed on her phone. Governance Core, protocol clearance granted. You have live command access to all audit unlinked channels for the next 48 hours. Use with discretion. Naomi read it once, then opened her laptop. The screen lit up. Simple dashboard, 5 panels, each one linked to a department. Crew relations, passenger protocol, legal, training, operations. She clicked crew relations first, typed immediately. All AeroWest Airlines personnel involved in Flight 261's passenger conflict are to be placed under temporary administrative review pending outcome of this audit. Staff names, Tracy Lorman, Wesley Grant, Marcus Willoughby. Status, on hold. No direct passenger interaction allowed until further notice. She hit send. On the other end, in the airline's HR command center, red flags popped up one by one. Terminals locked, access cards deactivated. Marcus's email closed mid-sentence. Wesley's account froze as he typed a message to Tracy's crew ID pinged invalid as she tried to access the crew manifest. She stared at the screen, then at her hands, then at the flight deck. "I'm locked out." Captain Myers turned. "What?" "My ID. I'm locked out." Myers checked his own terminal. Nothing. No updates. Then his screen blinked. "Notice your role on this flight has been downgraded to observer. Please await further instructions." Back in seat 3A, Naomi opened the training tab, typed again. Directive. Deploy interim bias recognition module across all AeroWest hubs within 72 hours. Immediate training required for all frontline crew on visual assumption bias, conflict de-escalation, class-based passenger handling. A document attached, drafted by Naomi herself. Curriculum, dignity in transit, applied empathy and equity protocols. Approved, uploaded, deployed. Lenora's tablet blinked with the push alert. She opened the file. Eyes scanned the first paragraph, then the last. She whispered, "She wrote the damn training program." Naomi moved to the operations panel. Final action, order. Effective now, Flight 261 shall proceed with alternate crew. Standby replacements have been pre-cleared. All impacted passengers to receive full fare credit plus statement of apology upon arrival. Confirm? Yes. Execute. The cabin door swung open. 2 new flight attendants stepped in, wearing neutral uniforms. Fresh crew, fresh eyes. Tracy stepped forward. "I'm the assigned..." One of them shook her head gently. "We'll take it from here." Tracy didn't speak again. Captain Myers stood in the aisle. "I'd like to offer my apology to you personally," he said to Naomi. Naomi closed her laptop. "Thank you, but apologies can't fly planes." He nodded once, then stepped back. A buzz, her final action. She opened the legal tab, typed, "To CEO, AeroWest Airlines CC, Board Governance Legal Oversight, Subject, Remediation Phase 1, in motion. This is to inform you that Flight 261 has undergone a full governance transmitted correction under Clause 13C. The incident has been documented and publicly verified. You now have 72 hours to present a company-wide equity initiative plan addressing blank, real-time complaint tracking, anonymous passenger incident reporting, diversity performance metrics linked to executive bonuses. Failure to meet this timeline will trigger full stakeholder reassessment. She hit send, closed the laptop. The cabin was still. Some watched her in silence. Others whispered. Jade whispered to Amari. She just rewrote airline protocol from seat 3. Amari nodded. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten. Nope, Amari said. She documented. As the jet bridge retracted, the new crew began standard departure. "Welcome aboard Flight 261, said the new lead. "We apologize for the delay, but some things are worth taking time for." A few passengers smiled, others clapped. Quiet, respectful. Naomi didn't respond. She looked out the window and said one sentence to no one in particular. "Reset complete." 7:58. Air West Airlines Headquarters, Conference Room 4D. Emergency board session active. 8 executives sat around the glass table. 3 more joined by Zoom. A massive screen showed a live news broadcast. Governance takeover, what really happened on Flight 261? No one spoke. Then a voice cut the silence. Firm, cold, she gave us 72 hours. It was Dana Red, Chief Legal Officer. She didn't look up. Her eyes stayed fixed on the thick report in front of her. 72 hours to submit a comprehensive reform plan. If we don't, shareholders get trigger notices, said Marvin Holt, head of strategy. We lose proxy control. Aero West CEO Daniel Vaughn leaned on both elbows. Remind me again, he said. Who the hell gave Naomi Ellison that clause? All eyes turned left. The deputy executive officer. He looked pale, sweat bleeding into his collar. Technically, we didn't give it to her. It came with Gibraltar's equity package. Dana spoke through gritted teeth. She wrote it. On the screen, a new notification flashed. Remote participant joined. N. Ellison Governance Authority. No one breathed. Naomi didn't speak at first. She scanned each face on the screen. Then her eyes landed on CEO Daniel Vaughn. Mr. Vaughn, she said slowly, have you read the incident report? Daniel nodded stiffly. Parts of it. Which parts? He swallowed. The summary, the recommendations. Naomi tilted her head slightly. Then you missed the point. She tapped her keyboard. The main screen switched. The first page appeared. Flight 261. Systemic failure diagnosis, bottom right corner, prepared and submitted by NRRE Oversight Lead. Here's what I found, Naomi said, her voice cool and cutting. 1. Your staff made a value judgment based on my clothing, race, and perceived class. 2. None of the bystanders, not the crew, not the gate agents, intervened until a screen told them to. 3. Every anti-bias clause your company adopted since 2023 has been ignored in implementation, training, and review. She paused. Does anyone here wish to dispute those 3 facts? Silence. Only the quiet flipping of paper from Marvin. Dana spoke. Naomi, what exactly do you want from this reform session? Naomi's eyes didn't blink. I want enforcement. Not statements, not apology videos, not hashtags. Enforcement. She clicked again. A new document filled the screen. Immediate Governance Remediation Plan. Flight 261 Catalyst. Deadline 72 hours. Launch anonymous digital reporting tools for passenger bias complaints. Tie executive bonuses to equity compliance metrics. Replace discretionary upgrade policy with a transparent, rules-based system. Publicly acknowledge the Flight 261 event within 5 days. Deploy third-party monitors at the 3 busiest hubs for a 6-month trial. Doable? She asked Marvin. Marvin flipped through his notes. Yes, it's tight, but yes. Financial impact? She asked Daniel. He exhaled. Short-term PR cost, moderate operational friction. Long-term, it pays for itself. Naomi nodded. Then the only variable left is will. A voice chimed in from Zoom, an older woman, silver-haired. A veteran board strategist. I've been on this board 11 years. I've never seen anyone walk in from the terminal and dictate reform like this. Naomi looked into the camera. That's because I didn't walk in from the terminal. I walked in from ownership. The tension in the room congealed like concrete. Finally, Daniel sat upright. Submit the plan, he said. We'll vote within 2 hours. Naomi gave one nod. Good. I'll be watching. The screen went dark. Dana turned to Marvin and whispered, She didn't even raise her voice. Marvin nodded. She didn't need to. The first headline dropped 12 hours after Flight 261 landed. Black executive removed from seat she owned. Airline forced into audit. Washington Tribune. The second came 3 hours later. Naomi Ellison didn't yell. She documented. Now the industry is on notice. The financial beacon. By morning, TikTok was flooded. Clips from the gate, snippets of Naomi's voice. The moment she said, "Power doesn't always wear a blazer," Jade's live stream hit 3.4 million views in under a day. Amari's tweet was screenshotted and turned into a mural in Detroit. On NPR, "We're witnessing something different here," said Professor Lena Barksdale of Howard University. This isn't just corporate reform. This is a strategic act of reclaiming space. And the weapon wasn't rage, it was design. In a barbershop in New Jersey. Man, she didn't even blink. That's real power, not flash, function. At a church in Atlanta, elder women passed around a clip of Naomi calmly closing her laptop. "She walked through that airport like she'd built the floor herself," one of them said, and the others just nodded. Then came the copycats, not in protest, but in protocol. 3 different airlines issued internal memos reviewing their discretionary removal policies. By Friday, Delta announced bias training revamp, United suspended visual-based upgrade decisions, Jetway Air committed to hiring third-party governance consultants, the hashtags trended, Clause 13, she sat anyway, governance queen, 3 AIs ours. But what made the movement stick wasn't just the virality, it was who responded. From the NAACP, "We stand behind Naomi Ellison and we're watching the skies." From the White House press secretary, "No American should have to carry proof of their value to take a seat they've paid for, let alone helped create." In classrooms, students studied the case like a living textbook. In boardrooms, executives whispered, "Do we have a Naomi protocol?" In whispers, in pulpits, in headlines, it spread. But the most surprising response came from those who had once ignored the conversation altogether. In a small-town airport in Texas, a gate agent pulled aside an elderly black couple and said softly, "You two take your time. Ain't no rush. And just so you know, if anything feels off, you tell me. We got a new playbook now." The couple didn't know who Naomi Ellison was, but they smiled like someone had finally noticed they were there. And somewhere in a quiet office, Naomi watched the feeds. She wasn't posting, she wasn't tweeting, she was building. Because power doesn't go viral, power endures. 6 months passed. Flight 261 became case study, meme, and myth. But Naomi Ellison didn't linger in the moment. She was too busy drafting the next one. Inside a modest office tucked between a legal advocacy building and a women's co-op cafe, Naomi sat in front of a corkboard covered in sticky notes. Each one had a name. Each name was a story. Some were small. A student denied dorm access during orientation. A nurse pulled aside for a random check 3 nights in a row. Others were national. A veteran humiliated at the DMV. A mother escorted from a high-end store for looking lost. Naomi read them like blueprints, like maps to weak points in an aging machine. Her assistant entered with coffee. "Board call in 10, media wants another interview." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "They say you started a movement." Naomi shook her head gently. No, the movement was already here. She stood. I just made it undeniable. In the world outside, change moved slowly, but visibly. Airline policies updated, governing boards diversified, whistleblower protections extended to passengers. And in one executive office, previously adorned with gray walls and silence, a new plaque hung over the doorway. Clause 13, Compliance Unit ST, by NRR. Back on the ground, Jade Chen launched her own media collective Sweat Equity, documenting the everyday power plays black women make just to move freely. Amari started a consulting firm helping companies build real equity infrastructure. Gate agent Marcus, now working in training and advocacy. Wesley? Let go. Quietly, no drama, just removed. The same way Naomi had once been, only he didn't know how to rebuild. But Naomi never said, "I told you so." She never went on a tour. She never even reposted the viral clip, because she knew the deeper the story traveled, the more it stopped being hers. One morning, Naomi boarded a flight from Detroit to San Francisco, different airline, same seat 3A. A younger woman, dark-skinned, early 20s, paused by the row. "Excuse me," she said nervously. "I think I'm supposed to be here, but I wasn't sure since..." Naomi smiled gently. "You are..." The woman blinked. "Really?" Naomi nodded. "You are. That seat belongs to you." Then looked out the window and didn't say another word. Because power isn't in the volume, it's in the structure, the clause, the code, the quiet woman who sat down, got up, and never once needed permission to leave.